So the problem with software today is that me, Spenser, gets the same set of code for a website as you, Turner, as the same as anyone else out there. We're all running the same piece of software. But that makes zero sense because there's so much data in how we interact with that software and what our preferences are, that software should be adaptive to who we are as end users. And there's really small ways that people are starting to customize software on a per person basis. Like you might have a favorites list or a recent list or, recommended algorithm, recommended feed.
Yeah, you open Netflix and it kind of knows what you might want to watch.
That's right. But it should go a lot deeper than that. Like the UI, first, features that you like should be surfaced to you. Like that's a really easy one. Features you don't use should not be surfaced to you. And then you go kind of a level deeper than that. And it's like, okay, actually the whole interface you could customize and change on a per person basis. And then you go even further than that, you could actually build features that you think will resonate with a particular user. And all of a sudden you kind of take this to the limit. You get to the state where software is being completely customized on a per user basis. And that's what I'm really excited to call that self-improving products at Amplitude. And that's the vision of where we're taking this company, is that we want the ability for software to be customized on a per person basis.
Welcome to The Peel. I'm your host, Turner Novak, founder of Banana Capital. Today's guest is Spenser Skates, co-founder and CEO of Amplitude.
We do product and marketing analytics to help you understand what your users are doing in your product.
Our conversation gets into the importance of data in product design and company building.
The problem of data in your product is a lot deeper, more complex, and more important of a problem to the success of your digital product than businesses give it credit for.
Lessons from scaling Amplitude to 300 million ARR. Like when to go multi-product.
Really what you're architecting the entire company around is a pipeline to a set of buyers.
What he's learned from closing 3 acquisitions.
There's a reason, they say 90% of acquisitions fail is because it's so easy to screw this up.
How he's thinking about AI.
B2B application SaaS has not figured out how to crack AI use cases yet.
The future of user-responsive software.
And so we ended up making massive changes to the interface. In about 4 months, we got 40% more signups as a result of it.
Stories from the early days of Amplitude.
One of my mistakes was spending too much time building the product.
How to construct your board as a startup.
I have learned 10 times more from him than I have from anyone else about what it means to be a great CEO.
And what most people got wrong about founder mode.
Great executives can harness how can we make this vision that you have a reality.
Before we jump in, a quick thank you to Ann Lee Skates for suggesting some great topics for Spenser. A quick reminder, I publish 2 episodes of The Peel every week, exploring the world's greatest startup stories, just like this one. Tune in next week for a conversation with Sam Ross at Numeral on all things startup growth. Now, a quick word from Numeral. This episode is brought to you by Numeral. Numeral is the end-to-end platform for sales tax and compliance. They handle registration, ongoing filings, and their API provides sales tax rates wherever you need them with all the integrations you need. Numeral supports over 1,000 customers in both the US and globally. And they pride themselves on white glove, high touch customer service. Plus, they guarantee their work and they'll cover the difference if they mess anything up. They're fresh off a fundraise, raising an $18 million Series A from my friend Chetan Puttagunta at Benchmark. If you want to put your sales tax on autopilot, check out Numeral at numeralhq.com. That's NUMERALHQ.com for the end-to-end platform for sales tax and compliance. Thank you, Numeral. And now let's talk to Spenser. Spenser, welcome to the show.
Awesome. I'm really, really excited to be on this. What's the name of the podcast, by the way?
It's called The Peel.
The Peel.
You're not a
listener? Capital. So no, I listen. I see it on Twitter. I see it on TikTok. It's all that's good.
Yeah, you've been starting to kind of ramp up your tweets lately, haven't you?
You've noticed. I was going to do it subtly, but I'm trying to figure out how to build a following. One of the things I've been frankly really poor at Amplitude is getting the word out there. To this day, there are competitors of ours who are much smaller that in certain circles have a bigger brand, and it drives me fucking up the wall. And so I'm like, I'm learning how to go from salesperson to marketer. And so a lot to learn from you.
Yeah, we'll talk about sales. Like you're a public company, you do a lot of sales. Like what's kind of really quick, what is Amplitude? And then just like what's kind of the scale of the business for someone who's just not familiar?
Yeah, so Amplitude's digital analytics platform. So we do product and marketing analytics to help you understand what your users are doing in your product, where they're getting stuck, how you can make a better product. And we believe that data is critical for building great products. And so we've built the best-in-class product analytics. In the last few years, we've added a whole bunch to the platform. So we've added experimentation and A/B testing. We've added session replay. We've added activation, which is like targeting users, and we've added guides and surveys, all of which are products that work much better together with kind of good data on your customers. And so we built out this whole suite. We think of it as we call it digital analytics platform. And and we sell that to customers, and we've been doing that for the last 13 years. In terms of scale of company, we're about 300 million in ARR. Public company, went out to the public markets about 3.5 years ago in 2021. And so now it's about how do we set we're early days in this category, and I'm thinking a lot about how do we scale here to $1 billion in ARR, become the market leading player for what we do in digital analytics in this next generation of helping companies build better products.
Nice. And I think like the customer base is just the logos I remember seeing in like I think the investor relations stuff that you have. It's like Zoom, IBM, the NBA,
Yep.
like, I don't know, FanDuel, Calm. I'm looking at the sheet now to make sure I get these right. Capital One, Burger King, the company that runs Burger King. Like, it's just a
RBI,
pretty broad, just like big businesses, like corporations that use it and have some kind of app or digital product can you use it for your website too?
Yeah. So anytime a user is using a digital product, so if you're using a website, if you're using a mobile app, if you're using an IoT thing, if you're using VR or AR, if we have our product is in airline kiosks as an example.
Oh, really?
It's
Okay.
also in for Ford. They use this to track. They have a smart console with like all the different controls, like your radio, your air conditioning, and they use it to track all the different interactions that a user makes with their car so that they can figure out, okay, what's most used? How do I make that experience really good and seamless? And so anything that's a user interacting with a product, we support and we do a great job of. And so we want to, and our thing is to help companies build better products. And like you mentioned, we started out like a lot of small companies selling to tech startups, but we work to large tech companies and then now to non-technology companies. So we have everyone from Walmart to NBC, to Ford, to the NBA, to DoorDash, Atlassian, Intuit, Square, all customers of Amplitude today.
Yeah, I remember seeing, I think you have 42 customers that do over $1 million in business with you. I was like,
yes,
that's like, you would just think of the product, like product analytics, like that can't be that significant of it. But it seems like people pay you a lot of money to use the product.
They do. One of the things I've realized is that, so first, just for a 300 million in ARR company to have 42 customers over $1 million, that is an outlier. Most customer bases are way more, your average customer size can be way smaller. The reason is because the problem of data in your product is a lot deeper, more complex, and more important of a problem to the success of your digital product than businesses give it credit for.
How so?
I'll give you a really simple example. So the one of the inspirations for Amplitude was Facebook found that the best predictor of long-term engagement was how many friends you added. You might say, well, it's obvious. The whole category is social networking. Yeah. But what was crazy is no one figured that out before Facebook because they didn't have the data to do so. And it was only because Facebook had built out a data science team that they found that insight, and they architected a lot of the success of their company around that. And so we help every single company out there do the same thing. And it's like existential to these companies. If you can figure out a little bit better of a product market fit than your competition, you'll win. You'll win the entire pie. It's if you're either in the technology business, you're either first place or you're completely out of the game. And so that edge that you can get with understanding your users a little more deeply is massively meaningful. Let me give you one other example. DoorDash figured out that the most important predictor of whether someone was going to do a repeat delivery was whether their first delivery was on time. So did they give an accurate delivery estimate, and did it show up within the boundaries of what they said? And what was interesting, you might, and you can look at that and you can be like, well, that's obvious. But it wasn't.
Because you might think it's just about speed, as
Speed,
fast as possible.
exactly. Their biggest competitor a decade ago was Uber Eats. And Uber Eats was focused on deliveries in 30 minutes or less. And they were like, okay, we're going to optimize the app around 30 minutes or less. But what DoorDash figured out is people were willing to wait longer, 40, 50, sometimes even longer if you were accurate. And that expanded the range of options they could give people. And you could make the trade-off as a user. It's like, hey, do I want something in 25 minutes, or am I willing to wait for the restaurant I really want for 45 minutes? Yeah. And as long as you were accurate about that, you were happy and you would come back. And so, it's one of these things that's more subtle that you would not have figured out without understanding the data deeply. And so that, what was that insight worth to DoorDash? Well, I mean, they are the number one food delivery provider in all of the United States today. And it would have been a tiny fraction of the size had they not figured that out operationally. So these questions are existential to these businesses. And we are in the very early days of figuring out how data can be leveraged to build great products. And so we're providing the key infrastructure that allows you to do that. And it's valuable to people. It's incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I think I wanted to ask you why it's so important, why product analytics is so important. I mean, you really answered the question. And then I think just kind of like wrapping up kind of high level about Amplitude, I think it's like $50 billion market or something. Like, how do you just think about like what the opportunity is?
I mean, it's massive. I mean, it's tens of billions, no question. In that, right? You look at the companies that are paying us millions of dollars. Most of the non-technology companies are still not fully deployed on us. And so, they're just like NBC, we're only in a few applications. We're still not in the main application, Peacock. Ford, we just got into the main driving console, which is great. Walmart, we only work with the mobile marketing team there. So it's early days for a lot of what we do. And so, if we are successful in building that out, I mean, that's easily a multi-billion-dollar business, if not tens of billions. I think the analogy we look at quite a bit is we think of ourselves as the next generation of what Adobe has built out as part of its marketing cloud. Where
it's a big part of Adobe's business.
Totally. It's the marketing cloud's about a $5-6 billion business overall. The data part's about half of that business. And so it's very substantial. And we think of ourselves, they've done a great job building for the internet as a marketing channel. We are building the data infrastructure for the internet as the product and value delivery itself. And that's going to be, that's so much more valuable. Now it's early days in the market. We're 300 million in ARR, so a lot for us to execute and do, but that's very much what we're aiming at.
So you have like multiple products that you offer at this point. What did you start with? And originally, was it mobile analytics?
Yeah,
like using an app.
Yeah, so very, very early on, it was branded as mobile analytics. Then we got a lot of requests where people wanted to tie the mobile and web experiences together. So we called it mobile and web.
That makes sense.
And then we realized really what we're about is this switch from internet as a marketing channel to internet as the product delivery, the product and value delivery. So the application itself, anything with a login with a user that you're doing multiple interactions over time, that's what we want to track.
And then how did you think about when was the right time to start adding new features, capabilities, or like entirely new product lines? I know you kind of call out that some of these, when you talk with some of these like non-internet native businesses, like some of them aren't fully deployed, they're not even using all the products yet.
Yep.
How did you think about when you should add a new product line?
Okay, so very simple equation. It's almost formulaic for SaaS companies like us. As you pass 100 million in ARR, that's when you go from one product to multiple products.
So why is it 100 million ARR?
You can generally get to critical mass with selling a single product, up to about 100. But in order to get beyond that, you need to sell a broader set of capabilities. And so if you look at the history of every single SaaS company that's gone from 100 to a billion, they added other products or other product lines selling to the same buyer through their channel. So, you look at Salesforce, you look at ServiceNow, you look at Workday, you look at Adobe and their acquisition of Omniture, it's the exact same thing. And so the dynamics of a market, at least in, for cloud SaaS, is such that single product generally, once you own it and you can get to 100, maybe a few hundred million, but to get from there to a billion, you need to go multiple product because there's other pieces of value in order to complete the picture of what you're doing for your buyer.
It's kind of the whole adage of, you start as a product company and then you essentially become a distribution company. Like you use your product to build up distribution with customers. And then because you have that relationship, they trust you more, you can help them solve different problems. And it's probably more profitable for you to when you spend all the time, the investment to acquire a new customer, to instead of just selling them one product, you sell them multiple. So in theory, if you have a good product and you serve them well, everybody wins. You make more money, your customers get a better experience, et cetera.
This is actually one of the hardest parts for great technologists to deeply understand is how critical the distribution problem is in a business. And so you can create a better mousetrap or a better widget, and that will be great, but it's actually, if you own the channel, it's much easier to go through and scale it up. And so the specific technology and product matters less. And really what you're architecting the entire company around is a pipeline to a set of buyers. So, if you're Workday, you're built up a great relationship with chief HR officers and they need a system of record for managing their employees, and that's what that is. Or if you're Okta, you're doing that with CIOs, or if you're Salesforce, you're doing that with sales leaders, and then you're going to bundle all sorts of things. And it's actually it's actually easier, and that's the hard part of scaling the company. It's actually easier to attach other pieces of products or other technology through that same channel that you've already built. Like we just did this with Guides and Surveys, where we acquired Command AI about 5 months ago. And they had done a phenomenal job of building a world-class Guides and Surveys product. They had this thing called nudges. So one of the, if you've been to any website recently or any app, one of the annoying things is you'll get what we call a pop-up party, where you'll just get all these notifications. Hey, do you want to accept these cookies? Hey, look, check out this new feature.
GDPR thing.
Remind you, reminder, you have, notification here.
Yeah.
And so you get a pop-up party, and it's like, okay, this, it feels like we're back to the 1990s when the internet first came up, and you just got pop-ups all over the place, except now these are even worse because they're in the app. You can't just have a pop-up blocker.
It's on your phone, and you're like Uber Eats, I feel like it's a classic where there'll be totally. A bonus, and then there'll be a little slider thing, and you're
all this stuff.
The X is tiny thing, and
it's hard to get rid of. It's the worst. So anyway, so we're starting to get what we call pop-up blindness as users, and they actually figured out, okay, well, we actually want to give you a notification at a contextually relevant time. Okay, so if you, for example, they can detect if you are confused as a user and then show a pop-up that says, okay, hey, it looks like you may be confused. Do you want to do any of these things? Let me help guide you to how to do it. Or alternatively, you can, if you're a power user and you want to know about the latest and greatest feature, they can customize a pop-up that's to you. Or if you're very frustrated and you have what's called a rage click, where you're just clicking around and nothing's working, they can also guide you through that specific experience. And so they've done a phenomenal job of building this technology. And they've been going for about 4 years. The company was about 2 million in ARR. Fast forward to, we got to know the founders last year. We acquired the company, and they joined Amplitude in October. And they worked with us to rebuild their Guides and Surveys product on top of our platform. And now we're selling it much, much bigger scale, much, much faster than they were doing that on their own, because we've built relationships with thousands of companies already, and, including a bunch of the ones that we just talked about. And so, it's as a technologist, it pains me to say it, but the harder thing is to build the distribution channel.
Yeah. What do you see? Well, going back to our earlier conversation we had just before we started recording, I put Crunchbase on blast, where I was like, I hate their new redesign, so hard to use. According to Crunchbase, you've done 3 acquisitions. I was going to say, I don't know if that's true or not.
It's true. They got that one correct.
I think they got that one correct. Okay. Yeah. So you've done a couple of them. What do you think is crucial about doing a good acquisition? If I'm a founder and maybe I'm nervous, I'm thinking about this, and I want to acquire this company, but I've never done it before. You know, I want to ask Spenser. He's done it a couple times. Maybe he's done some things well, done some things wrong. Like, what have you learned about doing acquisitions?
So you have to have the most important thing. This is advice I got from Brad Rensher, who architected Omniture's consolidation, what became Adobe Marketing Cloud. He said, firm on vision, flexible on details. And what that means is that you have to be really clear about what the vision for the combined company is, and you should not deviate from that. Now, how you get to that outcome, that can vary, and but let me tell you where this goes wrong for most companies is because so when we acquired the Command team, we were really clear. We didn't want them to run separately. We wanted them to fully integrate with Amplitude. We want them to rebuild their product on the Amplitude platform, and we wanted to do that right away, very aggressively. A lot of companies who are acquiring smaller companies will say, "Hey, well, we haven't decided what we're going to do," or they're afraid to say, "Hey, we're going to tear down your product and have you rebuild it and integrate it, or we're going to fully merge the teams," because they're like, "Well, hey, maybe you want to keep running independently." And
They might
so,
not take your deal. Somebody else is
yeah,
telling me.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, but that's a fatal mistake, because what happens is that it's ambiguous around where you're going and why you're acquiring and what the value is, and so you end up you end up in this limbo. And then when you actually do try to force whatever value is, a bunch of people, "Hey, that's not what we agreed to, or that's not what we signed up for." Much better you qualify that out at the start. If they're not down to be integrated into the larger company, then that's okay. Hey, we'll move on and we'll find someone else who is willing to do that. But you're not going to get the value by leaving it ambiguous and just letting them hang around and hopefully by osmosis, letting the two companies merge. So my biggest advice is just be really clear on the reasons. And there's kind of three general reasons. One is team. The second is technology and product. And the third is business. And so for us, we've very much focused on the first two, where we don't want to acquire another business and integrate. That's a whole mess. And it's a very, very different that's like a private equity roll-up playbook. But we do want to acquire great teams who have built great technologies and have that come onto our platform and be fed through our distribution channel. And so that's something that we've been very upfront. Now, to the Command team's credit, they embraced it. They're like, "Yes, we are excited to do that because you have these thousands of customers and the sales team and this marketing engine, and that can get us out there, and we can realize our vision of getting our nudges and guides and surveys products in the hands of thousands of companies much, much faster than we could do on their own." And that's what makes it worthwhile for both sides to make the acquisition happen, because there's not just there's the cost, there's the distraction, there's the merging of cultures, there's all the risks that are associated with an acquisition. And you're doing that because now all of a sudden you can leverage this technology, which was just sitting in a much smaller pond, to a much wider base of users.
It sounds like you thought about this a lot. Are you trying to do more acquisitions? Like, is this something you're excited about, or?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to be more aggressive. We're going to be more aggressive with them. And so we're interested in looking at companies doing interesting things in the data space in AI. That's something we're looking for, things that are synergistic, where a lot of having the fact that you have the amplitude analytics and the data set that we do will match well with them. And so, yeah, we're very, very, we're going to do that more and more. I will say, like, I even on the other two acquisitions we did, I think the ClearBrain one was moderately successful, and then the Iteratively one was not as successful. And I think with the mistake we made with Iteratively was keeping the code bases separate for too long, where we delayed that by a year, and that it just caused, okay, there's multiple versions of the same thing. Which one do you use as a customer? Which one do we recommend? And then they get even further apart. And then it's not until you unify them into a single thing that you get the value. But by that point, it was like, you missed out, you missed the boat in a lot of what you could have created together.
Yeah, and we'll talk about
that was our fault. I want to be clear. Iteratively team was awesome. Clearbrain team was awesome. Like we, multiple folks from those companies worked at Amplitude for many years, and I'm still in close touch with, and they helped us be successful, with our activation product or with targeting or with other pieces of the platform. That was just us learning how to do them. And by the time we met the command team, it was great, and they were very. And it's different. You can't be a founder anymore. When you're joining a larger company, you have to work within the broader machine, and there's not always things you can go as fast at changing. But you also have much more leverage, because you have all these resources that you didn't before.
Yeah. Plus, it's probably interesting. Like people might say like you give up your upside or whatever, and like instead of creating your own big public company, you get all the compensation and like the value you create for stuff from that. But also you switch from, I'm thinking Command AI, they're probably like around Series A stage, and they're like illiquid private stock that's monopoly money valued from VCs. It's like completely worthless valuation at the end of the day. Versus it's like, okay, you probably gave them stock in Amplitude or cash, and so you instantly actually get real appreciation. Like when you make progress and the company is worth more, like it's actually real versus
absolutely. I mean, yeah, and then combined, the real magic is that now combined, it's like both companies are more valuable as a result. So Amplitude's more valuable because we're able to sell a broader set of products. Command's more valuable because they get to the leverage of the distribution from Amplitude, and so the stock of the combined companies goes up a bunch. And so they've been amazing during that, and we've seen that. We've already seen that in terms of their ability to help accelerate our business.
Nice. And it reminds me, prior guest to the show, his name's Rahul Sidhu. He had a company called Aerodome. It was like a drone first response. Basically, you call 911, somebody responds. The first responder can immediately send a drone within 90 seconds to get to the site, and just like it's way faster than a cop car. Yeah. And so it was going really well. Like he's like, I didn't really want to sell the company, but he had an opportunity to join Flock Safety.
Oh yeah,
they're like a leader in public safety.
Yeah.
It's thousands of customers. I'm going to get these numbers wrong, but it's like really big business, had all the distribution. And he's just like, it'd be kind of nice just like switch the stock from Aerodome. Oh, I become a part of Flock Safety. I get their distribution. I still participate in all the upside. I feel like that's a good way to go in some cases, where it's like you just get stock. You get stock in like a great asset, and sometimes your investors are excited about it too. It's like, oh, Flock Safety, we've been trying to get in this company for years, and the founder wouldn't take our money, but now we get some. So
absolutely, it done right, it can be great for all sides. Now, I will say, like, I have to warn people, like, there's a reason, they say 90% of acquisitions fail, is because it's so easy to screw this up on all the different elements that we just went through. So. But we've, I think we've looked at companies like Datadog and others that have done this well, and I think, we've figured out at least something. There's an element of randomness too, and in terms of, how the teams mesh together and how much normally you can get the technology and the product and the market risks down, but then it's like, people are just random. So
it seems like alignment seems to be like a big thing just to get right.
Yes,
which is not what you would think. It's not the sexy.
No. Like all this, you can have a million bankers giving you fucking all these synergy models, like spreadsheets, and like, oh, you can make cost redundancies. And if we just, triple this company's growth, this will be worth, this much. And like you have all these bankers pitching you and all these crazy things. But the key thing is you need to be clear in your own head about why you're doing it, and then agree on that between both sides.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know you're like thinking a lot about AI. What's I don't know, current lay of the land, just like how are you thinking about it at Amplitude right now?
It's so first thing to be really clear about, it's very, very early days for AI, particularly in B2B SaaS. I think we've seen amazing breakthroughs in code generation, in application development, in obviously all the text and image generation stuff. But if you look at it within B2B SaaS, it's still very, very early days. Like, I don't think I can name a B2B SaaS company, frankly, that has done AI well.
What is it, like the
applications.
best? Is there like a best example you can think of?
No, that's sort of my point. Most of them, it's like, okay, we have a chatbot, and that's a wrapper around, the UI, and it's like, all right, this is literally more work. Well, one, you're just regurgitating help docs at me. Two, it's like this is more work to try to, I can just create new ticket here as opposed to trying to like type this fucking thing, like telling me to create a new ticket. Like, why would I use this thing? And so I think it's still very, very early days in terms of the impact that AI is going to have on application SaaS. I'm not talking about infrastructure. I think there's been a lot of great examples of it doing amazing things on the infrastructure side, but on the application layer, like, I haven't seen much. Honestly, look, I'm going to hate on Salesforce, and I respect Benioff, and they built the greatest SaaS company of all time and pioneered the whole category for us. But like, you look at, I don't know if you saw the Super Bowl ads on the AI stuff that Salesforce have. It's like,
It's Matthew McConaughey was doing some stuff.
Yeah, like he's like, oh, it put me outside in the rain eating at this restaurant and gave me food I didn't like. And it's like, that's not going to ever fucking happen. And even if you spend millions of dollars in Salesforce, Matthew McConaughey is not going to have a different outcome or that. Or like he's taking the wrong route to the airport, and it's like,
That's not even AI
this is
though.
clearly fucking made up. Like these are not real use cases at all.
Yeah.
So I say that because I was actually talking with one of our board members about this, is that he's found, I think AI somehow, like B2B application SaaS has not figured out how to crack AI use cases yet. And so it's very, very early days on it. And I don't know if that's it just disrupts too many of their assumptions about the workflows or how value is created or how the use cases are.
Pricing and business model.
It's still early. Like I'll just talk about it for Amplitude. Everyone is expecting this magic insight finder. Like, hey, we're going to tell you how to increase conversion in your application.
Yeah.
One of the challenges with that is that a lot of the context is not actually in the data already by default.
So what does that mean?
Well, so like what different properties mean, like, okay, so that Facebook example, you had to understand, or that DoorDash example, you had to understand, okay, this particular variable means delivery time, and this is what you want to look at, and you want to see how it's correlated here. And part of the value is having a human go through that process and set up that experiment and ask that question. And somehow, if you're just feeding it to them, it's not perceived as the same value, and it doesn't register in the same way. And so it's like, okay, well, what needs to be true about how that insight is packed up and how it's generated in order for someone to see it, understand it, value it, and then spread that insight around the company. And so there's that's just a small example from the Amplitude space, but there's still a lot of figuring out about how is this going to generate value in application layer B2B SaaS that I think we're in the very early days of. So now I want to be clear with all of that said, like we're all in on it. Like we're going to go really aggressive. That's part of why I said we're going to look at acquiring teams. My co-founder Jeffrey's working on it. A bunch of folks from the Command team are working on AI at Amplitude, and we're looking how to staff it up because we're figuring out exactly what the product paradigm is that works. We've done a lot of great experiments. We have a chatbot. We have Ask Amplitude, where you can create charts, and it's actually pretty effective at doing it. And you can iterate with the chatbot on what that chart looks like. We have things where we'll automatically detect anomalies in your data and surface them to you. We're just starting to build an agent where we will create variations of your website for you to run A/B tests on, like what we call feature experimentation agent. We're creating a bot that will automatically create guides and surveys for you. We're trying to figure out this insights piece where we figure out, okay, how do we actually create insights that are valuable and surface them to you in the right way? But anyway, that all said, so we're all in. We're being really aggressive on it, but it's still very early days for how it's going to impact this space.
Yeah, it seems like, to your point, when you talk about, like, it sounds like the meme that I hear is like the software now does the work for you. Like it starts to replace labor. So it sounds like what you just described is there would be a person that has to set up these A/B tests on the website, measure them, but the Amplitude product just does it for me.
Yes.
And so instead of me having to do this manually, I just see the results of the test you did automatically. Okay.
Exactly. So, and I want to be clear. We just have, we have some prototypes and we have an early demo on it, and it's not like we're figuring this out. But the good part is we've been able to build out a team on this, and we're going big on it. And I'm spending quite a bit of time myself on it. So I say all that because my point is, I think the transformations that I think we've seen in other spaces have yet to happen in SaaS. And so I think we're going to see there's an opportunity for companies to take the lead there, and that's one of our aspirations.
It's pretty crazy. You've probably seen, like, I think Stripe with their annual report that they put out, they showed these chart of like the growth rate of a traditional SaaS company or traditional SaaS startup and like the growth rate of a AI native company,
nuts.
and they
It's
grow like
absolutely
twice
nuts.
as fast or whatever. Just like they hit whatever revenue milestones basically like in like half the time of traditional. So
Yeah, I mean, you see ones that get to 100 million in ARR in like a year.
yeah, it's like the new meme, right? It's just,
which is absolutely nuts. But then it's like, okay, that stalls and that, half of it churns out the next year. And so it's a very different, the adoption of these products, it is nuts. The customer demand, like, so we showed what I'd call a concept video, not even a demo, a concept video for what this AI could do. And at our customer advisory board, we had a customer advisory board where we got a bunch of our top customers. And at the end of it, we had them vote on what they were most excited about. And by far, it was the AI agent, even though the vast majority of what we showed them was fake and they knew it. They're like, hey, if it can even do a fraction of this, we're in, It's like, there is a lot of demand for this. And I think the companies that figure out like how to tap into that can do incredibly well.
So when you think about like all these big technology waves, things that get a lot of hype, like with crypto and Web3, like if I'm on your board and I'm like, Spenser, we need a Web3 strategy, like you can say, we're not doing this in Amplitude. Like this is not relevant to our product or whatever. Like it's pretty like if you're Delta Airlines, it's like, no, we're not going to give you an NFT with each ticket.
Yeah.
But with this, you can say like, yeah, like there's actually like customer, like we can solve problems for customers with some of this stuff.
Absolutely.
So it's like the extreme like demand that just is there from people that you can use it to solve problems. Like it's so much more I don't know, visceral and real than maybe some prior like false start of these like new platform waves. Like you always see people put up presentations of like the eras of the web are like desktop and then internet and then mobile and then like Web3 was one for a while.
Crypto,
and then,
yeah.
But now it's like, we're crossing that off.
The funny part on crypto and is that it's like there was this post, I think it was by Moxie Marlinspike, where he was a technologist that dove into how OpenSea and a bunch of these other blockchain-based systems worked. And he was like, literally like, okay, the goal is decentralization, but one is like everyone is using, OpenSea or one of these other providers. So it's effectively a centralized database. And then if you just took the part where it was on the blockchain out and just used a regular database, this whole thing would run like 10 times more efficiently. And like you get the exact same results. And frankly, people, wouldn't even be able to tell. And I always thought that was a funny one with the crypto wave. So, and that jury's still out on exactly how that's going to net out.
Yeah, I'm actually, you could probably, did you get pitched of like Amplitude? You should put all the data on the blockchain so people could like see
to do it. There'd be no reason to do that with us. It's like our data. So we are in the petabytes of data, and so to put that on you're not gonna you can't transfer that on over the. I mean, if you're in like gigabytes, like megabytes, or even maybe gigabytes, you can do that stuff. But once you start getting into terabytes or petabytes, where we are, it's like no, that's not happening.
So it's like across the whole entire customer base, I think I saw a number in the website. It's like 18 trillion interactions of the product that Amplitude has tracked.
Yeah. We have 5 petabytes of data, and that's growing. That's growing like 30% year on year. So
that's just anytime anyone that uses a product that Amplitude is covering, any
action. Yeah. Okay. So it's huge.
So when I'm on my phone, I scroll up and down. I just made like 10 interactions.
Yeah, exactly. It's like just as a comparison point, ChatGPT 3.5 was trained on about 500 gigabytes of open source internet text. And so this is, we're at the 5 petabyte scale, which is, 10,000 times larger.
Wow. And that's, I think, the big opportunity in just generally with LLMs and AI is like data, just like having
Massive
data to
amounts
use.
of data.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then how do you think about that with where you're sitting? Like what kind of opportunities do you have?
Oh, that's part of what makes us so excited is that we have the opportunity to use this data to help generate insights for our customers and feed that back in their products. And that's a very unique position that we're in, is that we have the data and, you can train, customers can train models on it, and then they can feed that back into recommendations for their end users about, hey, here's a special deal that I know this group will resonate with, or hey, I know this set of customers will like this different product experience better. And so that's a really exciting thing. And I think very, very little. There's very, very little research has been done on that. There's these things called large action models, which is like, can you replicate the actions of users at scale? But even those have been trained on quite limited data sets compared to what we have.
Interesting. Huh. Yeah, it reminds me of have you ever come across the product Ada? It's a customer service.
I haven't.
So I had Mike Murchison, the founder, on a couple weeks ago. And so their product is, they have one of the larger like AI in like being used AI application products. And it's basically just people use for customer service. So like your whole, and they're sort of these like AI agents, these like non-human employees that just live in your customer service, like inside of all your customer service that you deliver to. And so if like they sort of like replace humans. So instead of like having me and you are like on the customer service team responding to people, it's just like an AI that just does the stuff. And then if there's like a break of like, there's some issue where like we can't do this refund to this person in like APAC because of like currency, I'll get a ping and I like jump in and like take over for the AI. So it's an interesting example of like AI in production that's being used at scale. And it's interesting because you kind of talked about the opportunity that they have where this example of doing like a password reset. So you and me were on the customer support team, someone emails and, they're like, I can't log in. And maybe like the first wave of this pre any kind of automation at all is like, you respond to them and you'd be like, oh, here's a link to reset your password, and you manually type it out. That became automated. And then eventually it's like in the app, there's a button to like get an email to reset your own password. And then there's the next iteration of it is, actually figuring out why their password got messed up. And it's because in the last update of the product, there was like a bug in how the password got stored or transferred into the updated database. And so it logged out their account or whatever. And then the next iteration is, okay, well, can you actually then figure out the bug and like fix the bug? So like the current process is all right, there's a bug in our app. We need to go back to the design team, product team. We need to incorporate it in the sprint, and like it might get updated in 2 months or whatever. So can you actually then just go fix the app? So in the course of like somebody needed their password reset to a minute later, like you have an update out and like there's no bug in the app anymore.
This is something I'm really excited about with software, which is what I think of as user responsive software. So the problem with software today is that me, Spenser, gets the same set of code for a website as you, Turner, as the same as anyone else out there. Yep. We're all running the same piece of software. But that makes zero sense because there's so much data in how we interact with that software and what our preferences are, that software should be adaptive to who we are as end users. And there's really small ways that people are starting to customize software on a per person basis. Like you might have a favorites list or a recent list or, recommended algorithm, recommended feed.
Yeah, like you open Netflix and it kind of knows what you might want to watch.
That's right. But it should go a lot deeper than that. Like the UI, first, features that you like should be surfaced to you. Like that's a really easy one. Features you don't use should not be surfaced to you. And then you go kind of a level deeper than that. And it's like, okay, actually the whole interface you could customize and change on a per person basis. And then you go even further than that, you could actually build features that you think will resonate with a particular user. And all of a sudden you kind of take this to the limit. You get to the state where software is being completely customized on a per user basis. And that's what I'm really excited to call that self-improving products at Amplitude. And that's the vision of where we're taking this company, is that we want the ability for software to be customized on a per person basis. And the exciting part is we have the data on people's preferences and what they like and what they don't, and where they get stuck and what they want to use. And so we actually, if we can inject ourselves back into the building of the product, we can do that. Now, the cool thing is, because of the platform we have the analytics, which is people's preferences. And then we also have hooks in through feature experimentation, through guides and surveys, through activation and targeting, where we can actually proactively change the experience. And so we're just at the cusp of starting now to start to do this. And that I think is a magical unlock in what software can be for each one of us. And that makes it so much more valuable. Like I was just using, as an example, like my Samsung Smart TV, and the thing is like stupid as hell. Like I hate saying that because they're one of our customers too, but like to get, when you download an app, I probably want to open the app right after I download it on the smart TV. Like if I'm downloading HBO Max, I want to open it up so I can actually watch the thing. But then you download it and you have to go to a separate screen, and then it's not anywhere in your favorites. And you have to go to apps and you have to search for it. It's like, what? And then eventually I figured out how to pin it. But it's like, why the hell am I doing that? Software should be able to reactively figure that out for me. So anyway, so that's the future we're excited about building and enabling. And the key part, obviously we have in that is with the data that we have on what users like and what their preferences are.
That's pretty cool. One actually super interesting point that I heard you've mentioned before. Well, I mean, we're talking about, I don't know, innovation. I actually hate the word innovation, but your language was like, sometimes you would think if you want to be more innovative and move faster, you hire more engineers, you have more people on the team. You actually think if you have too many engineers and too many people working on things, you actually become less innovative. How does that?
One of the challenges is most people think it's like, oh, more engineers, the more innovative, the more output you're going to have. So it's like linear. So if you have, 10 engineers, you get 10 output. If you have 20 engineers, you get 20 output. It's like it's a linear curve. Yeah. The reality is actually the opposite. It's not only is it not linear, it actually slopes down at some point, because
really, how does that happen?
The complexity. So a lot of things happen as teams get larger. Ownership gets diluted. Specialization increases. The number of dependencies between individuals grows, as the super linearly, so as the square of what's happening. People don't have context. This is actually an observation Fred Brooks had in the Mythical Man Month, which was about the development of OS2 way back in the day, where adding software engineers to a project that is late will make it even later.
Really? Okay.
And because it's not a strict function of the number of engineers working on it. There's the knowledge of the code base and how to make an impact and how to make changes in order to deliver what you want. And so you have to be very, very deliberate with how you add capacity to a team, because in the immediate adding to a team, you're going to slow it down. And then if you don't set up boundaries, if you don't set up the mandates thoughtfully and well, then you will inevitably slow down. And so it's no secret, like the most SaaS companies at our stage, between 100 and a billion, their rate of innovation slows down dramatically. So their ability to create new products and put things out there. And so we know in our category that we are still in the early days. And if that happens to us, we'll die. We'll be dead. And so we need to so we've been very intentional about how do you limit the rate of growth of the team so that you keep up the ability to where you give really concrete areas of ownership to people, and you hold the bar high in terms of what you expect them to do, and the knowledge transfer does not get lost on the current state of the system and how to improve it and innovate on it.
Yeah, so it's not stop hiring engineers. You still probably are growing the team, right?
Yeah.
It's just you need to think about how you design it so you don't, is there a way to actually increase,
Yeah. So the trick is you're not going to linearly increase, but you want it to at least be going up, so it's increasing. So it's monotonically increasing as opposed to going down. And There's a number of ways. So one is like new innovations should be done in a team that is siloed from the core team, because processes that you'll normally run, like you'll do a quarterly planning. But for a team that's building a new product, quarterly planning makes zero sense. They have no idea what they're going to build next quarter, let alone next week. Instead, you want to do something like a weekly check-in where you set the direction and that's it. And you don't plan any longer than a week. And so that's a very simple example of processes for a large team are not appropriate for a new piece of innovation. And you need to be able to keep both. In order to do a new innovation with a company, you need to be able to keep that group siloed from the existing systems and processes, which does not happen by default. By default, what happens, an engineering leader, product leader says, here's the process we're running. I want everyone to adhere to this because it's what makes their job easier, but it's actually not the thing that makes, they actually need to apply a different one for different teams.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see how that can be extremely difficult to navigate, especially when we just talked about when you're in that 100 to 1 billion phase is when you need to add new products and you basically need to continue to be innovative.
Yes.
But then it's harder, I guess. Do you see a lot of companies, I don't know, like they die in that phase? I don't know if that's like a fair.
Oh yeah, a lot of companies stall out. I mean, you look at, frankly, most of the peers in our category, like a lot of them have either slowed or are shrinking or are flat. And so absolutely happens all the time. And, I know B2B SaaS the best, but, I am not surprised if you look at across lots of companies, you'd see the same thing.
Yeah, and you said something that I thought was, I would not have thought this about founder mode. You remember when founder mode was like the big thing and everyone's talking about it and like, oh, I'm doing founder mode now or whatever.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on how that's kind of played out?
The most interesting part about it was how few founders embraced it and how many backed away from it.
Because I thought people were saying that like, oh, I'm doing founder mode now, right? Like that was kind of thing. Like I'm going back into founder mode.
Well, if you look at it, you can't find any company at scale that's say 100 employees or more where like there's been very, very few founders. Even Brian Chesky himself, did an interview where he backed away from a bunch of the concepts.
Oh, really?
Which was funny, and
I
a bunch of people brought out. The reason is because the reality at any large scale is the success of a company is the output of the team. Even Jobs, very famous, extreme example, founder mode, said his best product he ever built at Apple was the team. And so the key part. So I think a few things. The first is the key thing. The first key thing I took away from founder mode is that you have to. You are responsible for the success of the business, and you cannot delegate those details to anyone else. And there might be other, there are other ways of doing it, but as a founder, like you have to be in the details of the business. And for us, that's engineering and sales. For other companies, it may be something else. The second is that the right executives, and this is what I think a lot of people get wrong on it, the right executives can set you up so that you are empowered to make and drive decisions which are important for the business. And so let me give you the most recent example of this I just experienced. So we just had Francois Agenstadt, our chief product officer, join us a little over a year ago. And one of the things he helped me do is he set up a 2-hour product review for me every week with a place where I was trying to drive an improvement in the user interface of Amplitude. So the user interface of Amplitude had gotten very calcified over many, many years, and like our sign-up process was 12 steps long, and it was a total mess. And we asked you for like 20 questions as part of the process. We had you verify your email. You had to like type in all these different fields and remember them, and it was just.
And your average customer probably just wanted to like get in,
see if they like the product, try it.
Yeah,
exactly. And so I'm like, all right, we got to cut out all these screens. We got to cut out email verification. We got to cut out all these things you need to remember and just get the sign up process down to 3 screens. So create a username and password, put in your data, you get charts. That's it. But in order to do that, nobody owned it at Amplitude, and ownership was distributed in a lot of places. Like, well, this team owns account sign up, and this team owns this marketing funnel, and this team owns the data setup. And it was like, okay, for this to happen organic, it's going to take way too long. I just need to be very deliberate about what I want to drive and rally the team to do it. And so we ended up making massive changes to the interface in about 4 months, launched that last year, the Amplitude Made Easy, and dramatic difference. We got 40% more signups as a result of it on a weekly basis, 40% more companies sending us data every week after signing up. And so massive step change in the adoption of Amplitude and the ease of use that would not have been possible had I not been in the details driving it. And that's not like a lot of people actually had the same aspiration to make that change the experience at Amplitude. I remember talking to our head of design at the time, and she very much wanted to make this change happen as well. But it was like there's just too much coordination required. And unless I was driving that as CEO, it was not going to happen. So it was a kind of simple example of how building the right executive team can set you up to be very effective in the details.
So the narrative around founder mode, before me hearing you say this, I might have thought that you would have just said, I'm doing the onboarding, everyone else, like, this is my thing, I'm taking care of it, it's just getting done. What you're saying, what actually happens is that you have a team that like assisted you in doing that, and you probably had other things.
Oh yeah, I would not have been able to do it myself. Absolutely not.
Okay. So you really think that the best way to do it is, you still care about the product, you care about the business, whatever, you're trying to drive results, whatever, but you set up the team in a way that actually allows you to do that and not have to, be solo person founder. You're the only person in the business.
No. You can't. Great. Like I think a few things on it. One is that great executives can harness can work with you to figure out, okay, how can we make this vision that you have a reality?
Yeah, because your CPO might actually be way better than you at all this stuff.
Totally.
And you're like relying on him to you're using his expertise to get things done faster.
Totally. He actually did a good job because I was frustrated about this. And so I'd go into product development leadership meetings. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how do we change this? Like, it's not acceptable. Like, and it's like, well, this team controls this team controls this. How do we do it? How do we prioritize it? I'm like, man, I'm going crazy here. And what he did a really good job is like, okay, what we need is a forum that's dedicated to this, that has the right stakeholders in it, and that the context is set about what we're trying to drive. So let's set that up for you, Spenser, and then you can go in and drive. And that's been incredibly effective. So anyway, that's a simple example. I think the other part about it that people miss is that it's perceived as micromanagement, but that's actually not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to work with everyone in that room as a peer. Like, I want them to tell me for us to debate ideas back and forth so that we're coming to the best one. Like, one of the things actually that I pushed at the start towards eliminating that we came back on because I saw it was actually the right thing was user templates. So guides for creating a funnel or guides for creating a retention chart. And I was like, man, like templates, like no one wants to click through a wizard, to have a series of steps they have to do. What they should do instead is, we should just show them the result out of the box and they can mess with it. But the team ended up coming back to me and showing me a whole bunch of data that showed that they were actually some of our highest used and most engaged with features, and people who used it retained a lot better. And it was like, oh, okay, this is actually, wow, people actually value this. Because maybe I'm trying to oversimplify the experience a little bit too much in this direction. So that was a great example of it's not like I wasn't religious about any parts of my view. I really wanted to debate with the team about how do we create the best experience for customers.
Yeah, it's nice that you're a company and a product around helping people use data.
Totally. You can use data too.
Yeah, it's good that you're still doing that.
The part that's so funny, well, I'll tell you, this is like the eating your own dog food part, is that even then, it's hard. It's so hard. It took us a while to tease out the fact that the lift we had got from the changes in the product process were 40%. Because it was like we did a marketing campaign and then we rolled them out with a big announcement and launch. And so we saw a spike up where it's 2x the use. We're like, yay. We're like, okay, but how much of that is from the launch versus how much of that is from the improved sign up process? And it took us some, it's like you had to get really detailed and nuanced. And so Yeah, so that's part of why I say the space is so early, because even Amplitude is as easy as focused as we've been on making it easy. It's still way too hard to use these data tools, and even we're the poster child of, hey, we drive self-service among your organization.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of like using data tools, I know like back to the original founding of the company, you were working on something else,
Yes.
and that's how Amplitude came to be. Like, how did this all kind of start way back in the day?
So we first started. My co-founder Curtis and I first started this company called Sonalite, which is a voice recognition app where you could talk to your phone and send and receive text messages. And it was obvious to us at the time, this was 2011, it was obvious to us at the time you wanted to look at the data to figure out whether users were successfully using your product. We wanted to know, okay, if you have a successful first voice recognition event, what's the impact on retention? We ended up building out all this data, like a lot of engineers with hubris, we built out all this data infrastructure to help us answer the question and spent way too much time on it. But we actually found out some very interesting things. And the crazy thing to us is, as we talked to other companies, no one else had, no one else had access to this data. And so we're like, okay, maybe a company can come out of this. So when it came time to wind down Sonalite, we ended up building, saying, okay, there's a huge opportunity on mobile analytics here. And then mobile analytics became web mobile, and then product, and then, digital analytics that we are today.
And you were in YC?
Yeah, we did Y Combinator winter 2012.
Okay. And I think there's like an interesting story I remember seeing, like you were gonna like give people back the money or something if they wanted, or something like that.
You have
Like,
a good
what's
memory, Turner.
Yeah, well, I don't remember exactly the full story. I just like, so what exactly happened there?
Oh, wow, you have a good memory. This was a long time ago. So we had fundraised from a few angels.
This was before, after, during?
This was so we did YC. We went to demo day. I did a demo on stage of Sonalite. Really impressive demo. Like, I had my phone, I put it in my pocket. I'd like do this huge thing about talking to my phone, and like, I'm from the future. It's amazing. And we actually got the most press coverage. It was us and this company called Pair, or Couple, I think, that like had like, it was like a texting app, or a sexting app between a couple. And we ended up raising a little bit of money. We got 150 just from being from YC, and then raised 120 on top from 3 angels, including one Adam Draper. And after doing that, we kind of realized, looking at the data, that like, it's going to be hard to make a successful scaled consumer company out of what we're doing at Sonalite. It's just the voices interface wasn't quite there, and it was not clear if it was going to take off. And so we said, let's go do something else. And so we were like, well, hey, we raised a bunch of money and we don't feel right, and so we should maybe give this back, because like, we're not like doing the thing we originally said we're going to tell all these investors. And so we ended up, we asked Paul Graham and Y Combinator, and they were like, no, like, what are you talking about? Like, don't
Give
do
the
that.
money
Just
back,
keep the money. Like, they've already written it off at this point, and like, better you have it to keep going on what you're doing next. And by the way, they're investing in you, not really in the idea at this point, because it's so
Did
early.
you not really appreciate that at the time? Like, you thought they like had this thesis on voice recognition?
Or I don't know. They wanted to invest in that for some reason. Really, they're just. I remember one of the angels. I won't say who, but one of the angels, I was convinced, invested in us because we were the lamest company out of the batch. Or like, they invested in like 3 or 4 companies, all of which one of including us, and I was convinced they were investing in those because they were the lamest companies out of the batch.
Was like the valuation low or something? Like, they thought like
I don't know. I think we were all on the younger side too, and so that was part of the appeal. It's like, all right, these kids will figure something interesting out. I couldn't tell, but anyway, we ended up pivoting that company into Amplitude, and of course, all these years later, ended up doing incredibly well. So thank goodness for them, and thank goodness for us, we didn't return the money back at the time.
Yeah.
On a per share basis, I think it was, they invested at 4 cents a share in the seed round. So
And it's like 1160
yeah, we're
or
at like
something
12,
as of
11 or 12-ish right now. Our peak was at 80 at one point. So, they made out just fine.
yeah.
Got like a more than 200x return on their initial capital.
Yeah. Well, and so I think you mentioned too that it was a real grind when you raised the first round, like
Yeah.
starting the company.
Yes.
Can you just like talk us through that and I don't know how it went, how you got it done, like just tell people what it was like.
It was brutal. I mean, that was the first time I wasn't sure if we were going to make it. And I felt like, I just don't want to do this anymore.
But you stuck with it, obviously.
I did. Um, so we were trying to raise $1 million. We had been working on Amplitude for a year. We didn't have any customers. We had a bunch of people using it, but no one paying us. And really the only credibility we had at that point was we had the vision and we had the team. So, as myself and Curtis, and this was before Jeffrey joined us. And I remember I'd just go out every week and I'd pitch a bunch of VCs and angels and get a bunch of no's. And then it was like, repeat that in and out. And so
what was like the pushback that you got? Like, why weren't people investing?
it was the idea that mobile analytics was too late. We were too late. Flurry had already taken the market, and what we were doing was too late to it. That was one. I think another one was, it's like we didn't have any traction really. So people were right. I was also not a particularly good. I didn't know how to sell what we were doing and pitch what we were doing. That took a while for me to figure out. And so, I'd go out, try to raise money, get a bunch of rejections each week. Then randomly, I might get 2 weeks later, I might get $50,000 to come in. And it was like, fuck, it's like a long way between $50,000 and $1 million.
It's like 5% of the way there.
Yeah, 5%. There you go. And so, of course we do things like, we count, the 270 we had already raised under Sonalight and be like, look, wow, we're making progress in the fundraise.
Yeah.
And we're like, anyway, so it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. I think it was, the story I always told people at the time was it took 6 months, but I'm pretty sure if I look back in retrospect, it was probably like a 9-month fundraise. So we were very, very unhot and unsexy at the time. Now we did end up getting it done.
So how did you get it done? Like, what was convincing people?
I don't know. I still don't know. I think I eventually got better at pitching it. I think the momentum of the round ended up carrying itself. We got to a tipping point around $650,000 where like a bunch of people were like, okay, look, this looks like it's going to get done. I better get in now. And then we ended up going from $1 million to raising $2 million quite quickly. Super quickly. So,
because there's like a risk. Like if you've raised nothing and I give you $50K, that might be like a month of runway. Yeah. And if no one else invests and you get no customers, like the company dies.
The worst
is really risky.
One VC was like, yeah, I'll give you 200, but only if you could raise $1 million. So like, this is the worst.
I hate when people do that.
Yeah.
I mean, what you got to do, like what I do is I tell people I'm in and then I just help them raise the rest of the money.
That's
and
awesome. That is awesome. Good for you.
Well, and sometimes strategically it's like, I'm in and like, we'll sign the safe and I'll send you the money. And then sometimes people come in at a higher valuation and you actually get a deal because you came in really quick.
Came in early. No, that's the way to go. That's kudos to you for not putting any entrepreneurs in that situation. Like this contingent one is like the worst.
Yeah. I mean, I know you said like you follow me on Twitter, like the memes and stuff. I mean, that's just like low hanging fruit of like making fun of bad behavior from VCs.
There's so much. I mean, VCs are like I remember I told our first VCs, I'm like, oh, fuck, I fucking hate VCs because I was just being real with them for a moment. And they're like, not us, right? And I'm like, no.
Of course not. Yeah.
You guys are great.
So then you
appreciate it.
So you mentioned like you didn't actually have any customers. How did you get people to start using it? Like, do you remember like those days of like first couple customers?
Yeah. So one of the first customers we signed, the very first, so before that, we just begged people to use it. We just basically give the whole thing away for free. And it was none of those were paying us. And I kind of knew not many would pay us. I remember arguing with this one startup about like, hey, can you give us $50? It's just like, what are we doing here?
Wow.
What are we doing here?
They wouldn't even pay you $50?
Yeah, they wouldn't. They're like, well, maybe you see more value. And it's like, just your time in meeting with us is like not, it's not even worth that. So it's worth more than that. So like, come on. Like, yeah. So what we ended up doing was, I remember I got introduced to this one company, Super Lucky Casino, by one of the investors who was checking us out. They ended up investing. And so I remember I show up to the meeting with the co-founder, CTO of this company, this guy named Brett Terrell. And we kind of go through the demo. We spend, 30 minutes showing him like our little crappy analytics product. And we get to the end of it, and he asked me a question that had never been asked before. He was like, "How much does this cost?" And I was like dumbfounded. And I'm like, "What the fuck?
Never paid.
Like what? Dude, what'd you just say? How much
You want to give me money?
cost? Oh, okay. Oh shit. Okay. All right. I better come up with a number."
Yeah.
And so the first number that popped into my head, of course, was $50 a month. That's what you pay for SaaS, $50 a month.
Okay.
I'm like, wait. I remember Patrick McKenzie's advice to always charge more. And I'm like, all right, let me double that, go to 100.
So this is all within the course of like 2 seconds.
Yeah, 2 seconds. So I'm like, so I'm about to say 100. I'm like, no. I really got to push it here. I'm like, I need to think of a number that is bigger than 100. And so the biggest number I could think of at the moment was 1,000. That's like 10x that. Go to 1,000.
Okay.
And so I like $1,000 a month, which is as much confidence as I could muster. And to my absolute surprise, he's like, "Wow, that's so cheap. Like, great, we'll buy it." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is incredible. All my dreams of being a professional software engineer that creates software that someone pays for, I've been fulfilled in that moment. Someone decided to pay me money for software." And so, I now have created a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of value for someone. And so all the years of toil and, all the missed opportunities and all the money that had been put into us and belief that had been put into us has been validated in that moment. And so I was like, all right, I've achieved everything I've set out to achieve emotionally of starting a company. The rest is just gravy from here. And so that was the first. That was the very first. And then we started, then we launched the company a few months later, and then we started getting on the train. We actually found, so the reason Brett wanted to buy us is because he had been a product manager at Zynga before, and he was used to having these amazing dope ass analytics with could slice the users all sorts of ways.
Did they build a bunch of stuff internally?
Yeah, so Zynga had built a ton internally, but he didn't have any of that in his own company. So he's desperate for anything. So he's willing, to use the software from this like little 2-bit shop that had like no product or customers or nothing to speak of.
Yeah, he probably had just like a full-fledged team of 10 engineers just all day building custom analytics.
Totally, yeah. He was desperate for this. Yeah, I mean, they were like a small 50-person company at the time, but he was desperate. He wanted this problem solved, and he was willing to pay thousands of dollars a month to figure out and how to get it solved. So anyway, Brett, I appreciate you all these years later. Thank you for believing in us, and that gave me the confidence to go out and do the rest of this business.
Did he know he was the first customer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or I don't know if he knew at the time he was, but yeah, pretty soon he figured it out. And we took good care of him. We constantly built stuff for him. We'd be very responsive to everything he wanted. We talked to come by regularly and helped him and his team out. And so it worked out. It worked out great for both sides. But it was, and then I realized I need to go become a salesperson and start just selling software all the time.
So then what did you find that worked then? Just getting in what's a good system for thinking of, you just described getting the first customer. It sounds like you didn't really have a system. You didn't have a process.
Yeah. Well, I'll say a few things about so one of my mistakes was spending too much time building the product, because Curtis and I and then Jeffrey were all engineers, and we know how to solve problems, and that people have a problem, we can solve it. But the going out and selling, that was foreign to us, and so we were very reluctant to spend a lot of time there, and that was a mistake. Really? Finally, after Jeffrey joined us, I switched full-time. I switched from building the product to full-time selling it. Okay. Because and so one of my recommendations for early stage team is spend half your collective founding team's time on selling the product. Build half the time, talk to users, sell half the time. It's that's where you should be allocating your time. Too many engineers are all in on this bucket and very little on customer development or sales or what have you. I got a sales coach, this guy named Mitch Mirando, who would give me tons of coaching and advice. I remember he'd meet with me every week, and he asked me this one question. He's like, we go through the list of customers talking to me, and he's like, what's the business pain? And I'd be like, well, they want to make some charts or some SQL dashboards. And he's like, Spenser, that's not a business pain. What's the pain? And so he'd constantly be beating me up, asking me what's the pain. And so finally, in these meetings, I would ask these customers about well, how painful is this? Like why do you need this? Like what's the pain to you as a company? How would you rate this on a scale of 1 to 10? Um, and then I started to learn like, okay, hey, the sales process is not about demoing your product. The sales process is about finding people who have the pain, who have enough pain and care about the pain. Anyway, we then started selling, next customer was 2,000 a month, next customer was 3, then it was 4, then it was 6, then it was 8, then it was $10,000 a month. We were eventually sold the product to these guys, Quiz Up in Iceland, and had the team visit Iceland. There's actually a small kind of tech community there. And so, yeah, we're kind of off to the races on grew from 0 to $1 million in ARR in 9 months.
Nice. That's, I guess, compared to today.
Not that nice compared to today. Even today, 0 to $1 million in 9 months is good.
Oh yeah.
You go from 0 over the course of it was a good 2 years, I think, or a year and a half at that point, to all of a sudden now you're on the trajectory of building a business.
Yeah, because what was it? It was basically I think the rules back then, or the general mantra was, you get to $1 million in revenue in a year or something.
A year,
and
yeah,
then
24 months. If you can go 0 to $1 million in less than 18 months, that's good.
And then it was triple, double, and then you eventually, then you can IPO. Roughly, that was the back 10 years ago was the thing.
Totally.
So it sounds like you kind of did that. I think if I remember, you did 0 to 1, and I think it was 4.5.
Yeah, so 0 to 1 in the first year. Wow, you've done your homework. 1 to 4.5 in the second year. 4.5 to 13 in the third year. 13 to 31 in the fourth year. 31 to 53 in the fifth year, and then it was 80 something, and then we passed 100. So
nice. Okay, and then you're still growing is it 40-ish%?
Today?
Yeah. What are you growing at today?
Oh, it's brutally low. We're at 10%. We got to be growing a lot faster. Yeah. We're 60% year-on-year growth in 2021. Now we're 10% year-on-year.
Oh, man.
But we need to set ourselves up to grow at 20 and then 30%, to grow a lot faster than we are. So,
but you're profitability wise, you have a pretty good profitability.
Oh yeah, we're profitable today.
We're
profitable today. Yes.
So yeah, if you can stay profitable, inflect the growth rate up.
Oh yeah,
rule of 40.
That's the goal. And we just brought in a CFO, Andrew, who, we laid out a plan and when we're going to get to different stage gates on that. And so I want to be clear, we're still this early days for this category in this business. And so we're primarily focused on growth. The great thing is at the scale, you get all these economies of scale, so you can actually do it quite profitably.
Nice. Yeah. And I know one thing you mentioned was talking to your board members. I know you were pretty, I don't know, deliberate about bringing the right people on. How did you think about and prioritize who you added to your board?
We got lucky, frankly. But through that luck, we have gotten a very, very incredible group of individuals, very, very special group of individuals that are aligned towards the long-term vision of Amplitude and have provided an incredibly stable foundation for our success. And so I'm very, very lucky to work with the group. I mean, it started with Eric Vishria from Benchmark, who I frankly think is the best Series A investor of this day and age by far. He is a modern version of Bill Campbell. I have learned more from him, 10 times more from him than I have from anyone else about what it means to be a great CEO at this stage. He's interviewed hundreds of executives for us, and helped me think about all the different transitions we've made as a company from 1 million to all the way to 300, and as we go towards 1 billion. And he's very long-term oriented, and so we've been working together for over 10 years at this point. So I just incredibly lucky to work with him. We've had Pat Grady from Sequoia, who's very long-term oriented as well. We've impressively so. A lot of investors say they're long-term oriented, but not many are. Most are tied to their fund cycles, but they actually changed their fund structure specifically so they could be long-term oriented
and not have to sell
over 7 to 10 years. And that's starting to become a problem, especially as the life cycle of companies is getting longer and companies stay private longer. And so, Pat's been incredible and Sequoia's been incredible. Jim Whitehurst, former CEO of Red Hat, has been incredible. I've learned a ton from him. He's a living legend. Erica Schultz from president at Confluent. She's been, as we think of what does great go-to-market look like at different stages, she's been an incredible help and supporter of me and of Amplitude, and kind of guiding or learning, as I've been learning, hey, what does great go-to-market look like as you continue to grow? Ron Gill, like Catherine Wong, and we just added Team Swell to the board, who is the founder CEO of Zora.
I actually saw that on Crunchbase. That was one of the things they showed.
Good,
me.
they got it right.
So yeah,
they got it right.
Interesting. So, and then one of the things you did was you went public in 2021.
We did.
So what you could, you could have sent an email to Tiger Global, and they could have just given you all the money in in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
right?
they did give us an offer and a round at some point.
Amazing.
Yes.
So why did you do an IPO in 2021? What was the thinking around doing that?
I think once a company gets beyond 100 million in ARR with good growth, that So I think the first thing is there's a bunch of opportunities that you can take advantage of as a public company that you cannot as a private. So you have a liquid currency for your stock.
It's not like fake monopoly money too.
Yes,
it's basically like
it's priced in real time by the market.
Specific amount. Yeah.
So that allows you to recruit. That allows you to do acquisitions. That allows you to do other things with debt or raising funds that you just much more difficult to do when you're private. And then secondly, it sets a higher bar for what great looks like, and people recognize that. So companies, customers, partners, employees, other people in the ecosystem recognize that. And, it's like that little edge that you can get over your competition. So we're in a crowded space. And so it's like, yeah, we'll take every advantage that we can get to get Amplitude to help stand out. So I'm a big fan of taking your company to the public markets. I think one of the criticisms is that the bureaucrats take over, and it's like, oh, you're driven by the quarter. And so, but this is where you have to be very intentional as a CEO and leader about where you're taking your business and why, and not let the short-term pressures of the quarterly reporting and the discipline around it oversteer your company. And the great leaders, you look at Larry Ellison, you look at Bezos, or you look at Gates, Microsoft under Gates, they all did that incredibly well.
Yeah. Well, what would you say is the right and wrong way to do that? Because I feel like you guys have a good example of you went public, the stock went up, then it went down. How do you just continue to focus on what actually mattered versus the stock price is down, employees are thinking this, investors are thinking this. How do you keep people focused on what matters?
It's a test of leadership by far, and people will look at it all the time. So I spend a lot of time explaining what the stock is. The stock is kind of an output of the business, not the other way around, not an end in itself. If that makes sense. And so it's kind of like, I think of it as exhaust coming from the business. And, if the business does well, it'll reflect in the stock. But if you set your thing up to drive the stock price, you're going to get all sorts of weird and bad results in terms of where you're taking the business. It's very easy to run it into the ground as a result.
A lot of it's market driven too. It's just is the market going to evaluate
any
it?
short-term thing, it's like, I was walking the team through change in stock price. It's like, oh, why'd this change? Change in interest rate. Why'd this change? Election results. Why'd this change? Hey, there was a sell-off in this category. And it's like, okay, literally none of this stuff in our control. We build a great business and achieve what we set out to do, then we'll be successful, and that'll reflect in a lot of things, including in the stock. But in the short term, it's I think it's Buffett that said, in the short term, the market is a voting machine, and long term, it's a weighing machine. And so if you're living, it's like a high school popularity contest. If you're living by, did you get invited to that party? And, are you in the know? It's like, fucking, what are we doing here? It's like, there's no way to run a public company. So this is no way to run any sort of organization, particularly a public company. One of the exercises we did actually before we went out that I thought was very useful was to pretend like we had a stock price and show the team it going up and down every week. So at all hands, I'd be like, oh, it went up this much. Oh, it went down this much. Oh, it went down. Oh, now we're really worthless. How do you feel now? And the point was the business hadn't changed,
Yeah.
and we were still focused on the long term of what we were doing. And if you stayed focused on that, then you get get incredible results. There's also this thing because of one of the ways you can model the change in price of a stock is with a random walk. And so if you just there's this thing in psychology where a loss is twice as devastating as the equivalent gain.
Oh yeah, I've heard that before.
And so if you just go down one day and you go up the next, you will feel 2 times as bad about the going down than you will about the going up. And even if you end up in the same spot, you are psychologically worse off. So it's like, why would you do that to yourself? It just makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's like looking back, it's like the last X amount of time is like I've just felt like shit, and it feels like I haven't gone anywhere because I'm flat.
Totally. Well, you feel even worse than if you just hadn't looked at the thing at all. So
that's fair.
It's just anyway. So there's all sorts of like having I just want the price to be stable, but because that allows to defocus on it, allows you to plan around it better and all of that. But the good part is I've been really clear with the company about that, and I think people understand that we're in this to build something extraordinary over the long term, and that whatever volatility you may see in the short term is not reflective of the opportunity and our execution against that.
Yeah. Plus, like if you think about public versus private stock, whatever, like if you join a company when it's undervalued and you're getting compensated when something is like quote unquote undervalued and you're going to create value, I think like it's going to like you want to be getting paid from a stock price in equity that is actually worth way more than what you're really getting. So and you're getting a good deal then. So like this is probably like not something that's like that exciting for people to hear when they're like, oh, my stock's worth less. But like if you are getting more of it because it's like the market's valuing it lower, like that's actually could be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's funny. Even the Command guys, I was talking to them, and the stock's appreciated a whole bunch since that acquisition. So they're like, all right, where everyone's like, yay, we're happy. So yeah, there's all these funny dynamics in the market that can happen because of things like that.
Yeah. What in terms of like how you've evolved from being like the founder Spenser when you were Sonalite, I'm pivoting, starting this like product analytics idea to now it's like a public company, like the CEO of like you have a lot of employees, big teams. Like what have you learned and kind of evolved and changed over that period of time?
Oh, so much. We could do a whole Turner. We could do a whole podcast on this. Yeah, part 2 on this.
What are some of the biggest?
I will say being a large company executive is very different from being a founder, and most founders do not successfully make that transition. As a founder, you wire your brain in a certain way, and you have to undo a lot of that and redo it in a different way to be successful as a large company executive. And what's interesting, even founders who are very successful will normally leave 7 to 10 years in the business because this change is so dramatic. Now, the funny part is, believe it or not, being a large company executive is actually easier than being a founder in a lot of ways, but just making the identity shift is very difficult. So I'll give you a really simple example. As a founder, it's your job to lead from the front all the time. Like you should be out there selling the product, you should be building the product, you should be talking to customers, dealing with the fire, recruiting people, all of that stuff. As a large company executive, you cannot be leading by example on everything all the time. There's just too much stuff to do in the business, and you can no longer have to do, hey, I got to talk to this customer, I got to meet this employee, I got to do this thing on the PR side. And so you have to be much more selective, frankly, stingy with your time. Whereas a founder, you're just being generous with it everywhere. And you're just showing, hey, by sheer force of will, that you're the most committed and you want everyone to follow your example. But you have to rewire that thinking, and it feels bad. Now you become the person you hate. Now you're the person who no longer, who's just like crapping on other people's works and setting high expectations for them and, managing them and expecting them to do something while you're not doing yourself. You're not to say there are places where you do lead by example, like I'll still be on customers, I'm going to do product reviews, all of that sort of stuff. But, there's a lot of places where I just can't because you don't have leverage, you don't have time. And if you do try to do it, you'll burn yourself out. And so that is an example of the mentality shift that's really, really hard to do, going from founder to large company executive. And so I've been trying to deliberately learn that over the last 3 years, and it's been quite the shift.
What's worked best?
What has worked best?
Or like, how have you done it?
How have I learned that? It's hard. It was hard. I mean, frankly, you kind of learn it because you have to, otherwise you burn out. Um, I mean, we went to the public markets. We we had the stock come off, from its highs by almost 90%, or actually it was 90%, 84 was the high, and low was like $8, so just under $8. And then rebuilt the entire executive team to be stage appropriate.
Oh, did
And
you
that was
really?
brutal.
Okay.
Yeah. If you look over the last 3 years, the entire executive team is different set of folks. So, new Thomas, president, head of go-to-market, Francois, chief product officer, KJ, head of HR, Andrew, CFO, Wade, head of engineering, all new in the last 2.5 years. And so that was like brutal. So it's like, that was just like, hey, you just have to do it. Like there was no choice to be successful at this. So part of it is just so you have to meet the moment and just go do it. I would say another part, you just talk to other CEOs, other founders who have gone through that change. You understand how do they spend their time. You understand where they focus on. They understand what you do and what you don't do. You understand, okay, how do you hold executives who are more experienced at a function than you accountable for the results? How do you run a cohesive team? How do you prioritize? How do you see a change that you need to make in the business? How do you communicate about that change and the expectations around it? And so there's no formula on it. Like the biggest mistake, honestly, was I should have gotten in front of that change a lot earlier as a CEO and looked at what founder CEOs spent their time on, between the 100 million, billion mark. But yeah, now I'm here, you kind of learn through it and now we're on the other side of it. And so now, and not to say there's still a lot more for me to learn about this topic, but I'm really excited about the executive team we've got. Really excited about the path forward and the innovation that we have the ability to make. And so, I'm sure a year from now or 2 years from now, I'm going to look back today and still feel like I'm an idiot. But I feel like, it's terms of like, okay, what does it mean to be a large company executive? I feel like that mind shift has changed a lot. Yeah, you think a lot about people and resources and where to deploy them. And hey, is this problem get solved? If not, it's not. I can't dive into myself. It's my job to think about how do you rally the right group around it.
Yeah. And you mentioned there's kind of like these different phases of hiring executives. There's like, I don't know, early stage, mid stage,
Yes.
later stage.
Yes.
Like, is that kind of part? There's like, how have you
Yeah,
kind of evolved
that's one of the more subtle things you learn over time. And so early stage, you want folks who are like founders who are going to make something happen from nothing. At early stage, you have no brand, no product, no customers, like not much, no talent, nothing you can do, and they have to make something happen just like you as a founder through sheer force
They
of
have to
will.
build it, sell it, recruit someone on the team.
Exactly.
Like just every function.
Yeah. Make. How do you create an event where customers will come and show up even though nobody knows about who you are? That's hard.
You
Challenge
can't just
yourself.
email somebody, just be like, hey, like event team,
Totally.
set up this event.
There's no team to do it.
Yeah.
So you get executives who are very much like founders. For the mid stage, you want someone, then you need to start doing repeatable processes instead of just starting stuff all to place. So once you get to about 20 or 30 million in ARR, you want repeatable. Repeatable is the key. So it's like, okay, how do you create a sales process so that you can forecast accurately for the quarter? How do you get the right spec for the type of engineer you're trying to hire? How do you get your books in order so that you can reliably report your results? For the late stage, then you get, honestly, people who their main job is actually not even running those processes. Their main job now is to hire other leaders who will run those processes. So now my job is to hire people who are good at hiring other leaders and rallying them. And, now it's like the people who are actually doing the work a bunch of layers down.
How do you tell that someone's good at hiring? Like if I show
track record is, I mean, first is what you're going to work for them. That's like a good one. Track record of doing it before. Depth. One of the questions I like to ask executives is like, tell me about the best hires you've made, and then I start testing them on how well they know these people, like what motivates them. It's like, oh, they want to make a lot of money. I'm like, cool. Why do they want to make a lot of money? More in depth you can go there, the better. You see who wants to follow them from company to company.
I've definitely heard that. Like
that's a big part of executives. Executives who have talent will have multiple people who will want to work with them again. that's a strong sign. It's kind of a flag if they don't. But there's not. But just knowing that that's what you're hiring for once you're past the 100 million in ARR stage, that's the harder part. It's less about like, can you do all the work and scale the stuff yourself? It's more about, can you hire a great team around it?
So, well, speaking about like hiring and like team composition, how are you thinking about DEI today?
So first, I just want to give my rant on this, which is like, tech industry fucking full of cowards as leaders. Okay, like the fact that a few years ago these leaders were all in on DEI, and now, new administration, all of a sudden we didn't actually believe all those things that we set out to do, and we're going to get rid of them. And like to really silly degrees. I mean, like Facebook getting rid of like tampons, men's bathroom. It's just like, what the fuck are we doing here? It's just like, and so it's like, okay, I'm clear. You just didn't have any principles in the first place. You only were interested in DEI at the time because your employees pressured you to do it, but you actually didn't believe in the power of diverse teams as a leader. And then now you're only flipping the other way because, Trump got elected and Republicans are in power in Congress. It's like, all right, this is the exact fucking opposite of leadership. And so like, frankly, I think 90% of the tech industry and CEOs and my peers are fucking cowards on this. So put that on the podcast. Yeah. Let's clip that. Second is, we haven't changed our view on this at all at Amplitude. We've been a believer in diverse teams from very early days, where we've been intentional about how do we create more inclusive environments, particularly for, underrepresented groups like women in tech, from when Amplitude was very small to the last few years to today. And so we're still very, very intentional about that in terms of thinking about how we build out different teams at Amplitude. How do we build out our executive team? How do we build out our board? The second part of it is like, I think it's just like, Amplitude is a place where you belong, and we want to include you, whether you are trans, whether you are from a minority group, whether you are of a different gender or different national origin, or like whatever group you're from, you belong in Amplitude. And I think that is a very important message for individuals to hear from their leaders at this time. And so I want to make sure folks at Amplitude hear that. I want to make sure folks in the broader industry who are considering joining Amplitude hear that as well. So I think it's frankly ridiculous that so many CEOs and companies have backed away from this stuff. It's just complete lack of leadership on this issue. And it's like, okay, well, hey, let me at least give Zuckerberg himself a few kudos. It's like, all right, this guy just wants power. This guy's just pursuing raw power in whatever form it takes. The principles just shift to follow that. At least that guy's clear about what he's doing. The rest of them is just like, sheep. It's sheep. There's a difference between. There's this great post online I love that talks about sheep logic, and it compares sheep to wolves. It makes the point that both sheep and wolves are very social creatures and very smart, very socially aware. And wolves are very thinking about the success of the pack, willing to make sacrifices for this. Or for their family members, for other wolves, so that the pack can survive and do well. Whereas sheep are they're very other aware, but incredibly self-centered. And so if they see one sheep panicking, they're going to panic too. If they see another sheep has found an interesting patch of grass, they're going to go try to eat it. To the detriment. If they see another sheep running off a cliff, they'll go join them. And so anyway, I just, I'm a strong believer in leadership as a wolf, not leadership as a sheep.
Yeah, interesting, because you would not think, in saying that sheep and wolf analogy, you'd not think of like the wolf as a leader. Like, I mean, you think of like the evil bad guy who's like eating the sheep, right?
Oh, it's bad. I love dogs. Who doesn't love dogs?
Well, yeah, exactly. But to your point, it's like, yeah, the wolves are actually. Well, I mean, if you're leading a company, do you want to be a sheep or do you want to be a wolf? Like the leader of a company wants to be a wolf. Yeah,
hell
exactly.
yeah, hell yeah.
So
hell yeah, too many sheep these days. Yeah. So and that metaphor applies to a lot of different. There are a lot of sheep-like games, like investing. As they joke, it's a very sheep-like game.
we're all sheep.
It's like, hey, who else isn't around? Is it hot? Like, I'm gonna get out before someone else does. Oh shit, this company's in trouble. Fucking better piece the fuck out. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Just delete it from my LinkedIn or my Twitter bio. It's like,
exactly.
Amplitude, I was an investor in that company. What are you talking about? Or I am a proud early investor. Like,
totally,
me and Spenser are best friends, and like we love the company.
Totally.
Speaking of like games, I don't know if you just mentioned games. We didn't even call this out. We're actually in the Amplitude office right now. You guys have a game night literally right outside of us.
Sorry about the noise in the background.
Yeah, hopefully people can hear it. So do you believe that like games and gaming is like relevant to working or operating a startup or building a startup?
Games, gaming. Yeah, there was a group of early employees. That's how Jeffrey Curtis and I bonded, frankly. And so it can be a good mutual interest and hobby to have.
Do you have a favorite game?
I've been watching. Believe it or not, this will date me a little bit, but I've been watching a lot of StarCraft Brood War recently.
You've been watching?
Yeah. So so there's this tournament called the ASL, the Africa TV Star League, which is basically all these Korean pros that like are playing StarCraft against each other. They have it twice a year, and the new season's about to start, and so I'm like getting pretty hyped up for that.
Interesting. Okay.
Which is like, I know, like, it's a game from like 1999, but like it's so, in terms of quality of skill, it's like the most refined. It's incredible. Like all of MOBAs and that whole owes its legacy to what StarCraft did, and it's just such an incredible game.
I don't think people who don't play like competitive video games or like video games like you're like the best of the best. It is like extremely intense.
It is very. I mean, it's nuts. It's nutty how good some of these people are. It's great. I mean, they're real athletes. So
yeah, like I played a lot of like Halo 3 back in the day. Do you remember Major League Gaming?
Oh yeah.
Remember that? Yeah. So like I actually went to a tournament once. It's what made me realize I was not going to be a pro gamer. This is like 2010.
So good.
We got destroyed. So I played Halo online a lot. I got the MLG playlist in Halo 3. I got a level 50 in it, which is like the hardest thing to do. I was like, I feel like I beat the game.
That's amazing.
And then went to one of the tournaments where they had this like local tournament in Chicago. I was in Grand Rapids going to school. And just with some friends from school, we started playing Halo together, and we went to this tournament. It's like a double elimination. You play 2 matches against each team and whatever. So we played a total of 4 matches or whatever.
Yeah.
2 lost the first one, lost the second one. Losers bracket. Lost the first one, lost the second one.
It's brutal.
Knocked
out. The skill level. Yeah, don't go in a professional game. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, so. It's sort of, I describe it to people as like speed chess, because you're constantly, and it's like a team, because you're all moving, like if it's StarCraft, Halo, like you're positioning around the map, influencing spawns, like where they're going to be, where the weapons are. You're constantly like, you're trying to force them to spawn in bad spots while having map control. And it's like, so it's like you're playing chess kind of, but it's also like hand-eye coordination at the same time. It's crazy. Do you know what game you're going to play when you get out there?
Oh, I don't know. They're probably playing like One Night Werewolf or Codenames or something like that.
Oh yeah, Codenames is fun.
Yeah. It's a good. We do every Thursday night. Join Amplitude if you're interested in that sort of stuff.
Yeah, join Amplitude. How can we? We'll throw links in the description of the show, but like, how can people find you, or like
Spenser Skates on Twitter? Or amplitude.com. You can check us out there.
/careers also.
Yeah. There's /careers on it, or find us on LinkedIn. So a bunch of different places. We'll post on Twitter and LinkedIn. So,
cool. Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's a lot of fun. Thank you,
Turner. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Sorry I was late, and thank you for doing this. It's great, dude. I appreciate it. Dude, you did your background research on me. It's incredible.
And thank you for listening, and to Numeral for supporting this episode. If you missed it, check out last week's conversation with Dan Lawrence on scaling ChainGuard from 0 to 40 million ARR in 2 years. And if you don't want to miss next week's episode with Sam Ross at Numeral for a masterclass on all things startup growth, subscribe to my newsletter, The Split, in the episode description to get the episode plus a transcript emailed directly to your inbox. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.